What's up, War Room? Welcome back. Joe and Connor. We're loading you up before Thanksgiving. You got the Schrager interview to listen to. You got me and Connor's pod last night to listen to. You got a War Room to listen to now. You're going to have a flight plan and a Buck the Trend to listen to. So load up on all the content. We're going to answer a bunch of your Discord questions. We're going to talk a little Rodgers, which we didn't talk in the main pod. And we're going to steer this right into your Thanksgiving. Also with a reminder at the top. By the time you're listening to this, badlandstoj.com. 35% off everything with promo code Badlands. Couldn't be any easier. If you ever need gear, now is the time to get it at 35% off. And it comes with a nice code. So you can gift the gift of Patreon membership this holiday season. CR, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? You making the turkey at this stage? Probably not. You're not that age yet. But what do we got going on?
I have really bad news. We are hosting Thanksgiving for the first time.
No, you got the new house. That makes sense.
New house. But year one, I was like, you don't really have to do it year one, and I somehow conceded. My wife is she's a really good cook. She's gonna brine the turkey. It's gonna be nice. A long process. The food's gonna be 10 out of 10. It's not that big. I think we have 10 people coming because there's so many family members doing extended family things and that. So I am hosting Thanksgiving and I am working. I'm excited about this. I'm working Black Friday for NBC's college football show because we have Iowa and Nebraska, which is going to be about 10 degrees at kickoff, which is going to be, I'm in the studio, so I have nothing to worry about.
So you be warm.
But no, it's going to be awesome. Thanksgiving, we'll see. I'll let you know how that goes ultimately. But yeah, it's still a really, really busy week because football only gets busier during Thanksgiving week. But we'll are you going somewhere, or are you at the stage where you have to host now?
I'm going to my in-laws' house, who live in Plymouth, so it's a perfect place to be for Thanksgiving. My brother-in-laws, who are older than me, will do all the work, fortunately, and I will eat and drink a lot and catch a lot of shit for being a Jets fan. And I am the youngest in this context, which I take full advantage of while I'm up here in the Commonwealth for the holidays. So it'll be nice. I'll sit around, probably slap together some crazy parlays and some underdogs, which we'll shout out here at some point and
it's
enjoy
funny,
the football.
When you look at the slate for Thanksgiving, and this is a bad one, it does give you some random motivation to just start betting more than you usually do. I'm like, what is my Thanksgiving?
The American way.
It really is. It gets you hyped. It's no, let's not forget, last year I also worked Black Friday, but it was for Jets Dolphins.
Could always be worse. It could be Tim Boyle against Miami.
So bad that the Fail Mary, Tim Boyle, the whole.
Shout out Brandon Eccles, pick six though, our guy.
Brandon Eccles, who still has the interceptions on the team this year. Yeah, no, Thanksgiving is great. It's grown on me. It was not a holiday I loved for a long time because honestly, it just reminds me of being super busy this time of year. I was traveling all the time for it, but yeah, it is a great football holiday, and I feel like the NFL is gearing towards making Christmas the next great football holiday. We'll see how it goes on Netflix.
Oh yes. Well, let's get the streaming going. I will say, if and when I'm hosting, I will do what my dad does, and I will deep fry a turkey. He has the deep fryer, gets that going. So when we have Thanksgiving with them,
safely,
that's the deep fried turkey. Safely, you got to be careful with that stuff. He's an expert with this stuff. I am not. I am good at yelling about the Jets into this ring light and camera. Not good at actual functional adult things like deep frying a turkey. But one of these years. All right, Discord questions. First one from Gabe, and some of these we're going to hit quick because we dabbled on the pod. Some we'll go a little longer on. Does the 33rd team hiring suggest we aren't getting a president of football operations and have to settle? Well, at least it isn't Woody making a decision alone. I think, yes, it means they're probably not hiring a VP of football operations. I could be wrong, but I think this is them checking that box. What do you think, CR?
Yeah, I thought so too. That's why I talked about this a little bit on the podcast. One, it's really hard to have an opinion on this. Two, a strong opinion. You could have an opinion, obviously, on anything, but the reality is it does feel like kind of their workaround in a sense where they know they need football people involved in this, but they are not going to, concede that level of power and just say, hey, you do this. Because here's the difference. Very cut and dried. If you hire a VP of football operations, they are going to hire the general manager. And then with the general manager, typically they're also going to hire the head coach. And they might have roster control. They might not. That's a whole nother. But then they're going to tell you how to structure your scouting department, how many directors of pro personnel do we need? How many guys do we need doing the advanced scouting for who we're playing? How many guys do we need per region? How many scouting interns do we need? How many analytics people do we need? How many of those analytics people are dedicated to our college side versus our pro side? Like this is it's a big undertaking, and it allows you to have somebody setting up all of that, and they can work hand in hand with the general manager. But those guys are doing that all on their own. Like the VP of football operations doesn't need to go to Woody Johnson to be like, hey, we're decided this year we're going to shift, somebody to analytics from our Southeast scouting. Like so now you're going to what the Jets have typically always done, where it's the same business people and it's Woody and it's hard for me to sit here and just tell you that, they figured out a new shakeup and it's going to be so the structure is really the same. Now, could whoever they hire end up being a good GM because he picks the right quarterback and the coach, has the defense playing at a better level and the Jets get it right at quarterback and all of a sudden they start being more of a 9-win team than a laughing stock? Like doesn't mean that's out of possibilities. It's in the NFL. The Jets have made that look a lot harder than it is, by the way. Like there's a lot of bad organizations that win a lot of football games because they got those things right, because it's not rocket science. But the infrastructure problems that make things a little bit more difficult for the football people with the Jets, this to me shows that that's not changing.
I agree. And I think the best we could hope for is that if the Jets are talking to media companies and consulting firms, hey, bring us in for a conversation. We're always game. We're here. We're always
it literally cannot hurt, by the way.
Can't hurt. Worst case, we just have some beers and talk football. Underdog fantasy. Get your picks in. Thanksgiving games, Black Friday games, all the other games on Sunday. Doesn't have to be Jet games unless you're just hammering the unders on offense and the overs for Geno, JSN, Walker, everyone you could think of. I would. But when you do, make sure you use promo code Badlands for a deposit match. Now is the season. Also do it for basketball, do it for NHL. CR, give me one player on Seattle that you're feeling it over for at high or lower with underdog.
Oh man, you talked about this earlier, but it feels like one of those. Well, number one, they just need to tackle, and it feels like they won't tackle neither Kenneth Walker or Zach Charbonnet. But you could just see JSN running over the middle of the field and weaving around defenders, and so yeah, I am very in on Seattle, and I'm curious where Geno's touchdowns will be, because I think Geno throws at least 2 touchdowns in this game. Sounds about right.
I agree. Underdog fantasy, promo code Badlands. Enjoy your holidays.
Right.
Next question from David, and I'm going to slap my own question onto this because I get more and more of these questions, and I need to sound not like an idiot when I'm asked them. From David, a couple of late round sleepers for the draft. Chris Hinton, son Miles, plays left tackle for Michigan, round 6 or 7. A project, but has size, strength, and needs technique and coaching. Michigan has a far better kicker than Jake Moody, who San Francisco reached for. Dominic Zavada, 6 for 6 from field goals. So we're talking some late round cuts here. Answer that. But my question is, and I believe this is my understanding from what we've talked about before, which is light. Is there any quarterback in this draft besides Cam Ward who merits a top 10 pick? I'm going to put Sanders on the side because I think when you draft Sanders, you're drafting Coach Prime too, and I don't think that's in the cards for the Jets. So let's put him aside. Anyone besides Cam Ward who you're taking with a top 10 pick? And is Cam Ward he's like a top 2 or 3 pick, where if the Jets are picking 8th, it's like, don't even think about it?
So to answer the first part, no. Jalen Milroe has traits. He's just so wildly inconsistent. He screams a guy that goes in the second half of round 1 and sits on the bench, does a true redshirt kind of year. Like he really could get them Mahomes. You know what the Ravens kind of wanted to do with Lamar. Like we're really not interested in letting this guy play out of the gate. We want him to sit and be behind a true bridge quarterback. Cam Ward, with this draft, he could easily go in the top 3 because it's not a deep quarterback draft. You nailed it. Like, as much as people really like Shedeur, and there are things to like about Shedeur, there are things that come with Shedeur that will not be liked by everybody, and that is Dion. And that is the fact that when Shedeur starts struggling, do you have quotes in the news where your offensive coordinator feels like he's going to be fired after week 7 because, Shedeur struggled? And it's going to be a real conversation. Now, it doesn't mean that Shedeur is not going to go in the top 10 because he is, but it's a really fair, like, this to me, I think 2 quarterbacks go in the top 10 in Shedeur and Cam Ward. I think when all is said and done, they more likely go in the top 6 because they are quarterbacks. And if you believe in a quarterback in the draft, you don't get cute, you don't get cheeky, you take them. That's just the way it goes. But after that, Milroe, guys with traits could always rise, but I don't know if he'll go in the top 10 for sure. That feels like he's on the outside looking in right now if he doesn't go back to school. And then after that, like this class fell off a cliff. Quinn Ewers, Carson Beck, like those guys had a shot. They're not going in the top 10. So no, it's not a deep quarterback class, and it's not a great quarterback class.
Fun. Well, here's a little piggyback.
You love to hear that?
Yeah, it's fun. Let's keep it in the quarterback land because I'm not going to read all the names here. We got a couple questions about, well, shouldn't they just keep Rodgers because of what you just said? And some of the other questions we got were like, look, if we're not going to draft someone, instead of just going the Tyrod bridge route, because we all like Tyrod, but there's concerns about his health. We're not believers that Jordan Travis is a starter in the NFL. We could be wrong. I just think you're betting on an outlier.
It's a long shot. Yeah.
Do you try to go get a guy like a Justin Fields or a Kyle Trask or someone who's like not getting a chance, quote unquote, somewhere? Someone mentioned Herndon Hooker. I don't know why the Lions would give up on him. Want to just hang on to him and hope that it works out post Goff. I don't think Darnold's coming back here as a free agent, so we don't have to have that conversation.
Nah,
Bryce Young had been thrown around. He's not going to go anywhere now because he's playing better. Basically, like, instead of signing like the Minshew Dalton old bridge, like who is a young
reclamation project
that would be worth doing to, I guess in that scenario, like you can't, I'll use Trask as a placeholder, and I don't think it should be Trask because I think he stinks, but like you sign him, you would still keep Tyrod. And it's like he is sort of your alternative instead of Jordan Travis, who you keep, but like you can't count on Travis to be that young guy. Maybe you can. Some people are going to strongly disagree with that. I just don't think he is. What are some of the names? And then we can have the Rodgers conversation.
I mean, let's be very frank before we just start doing this and it gets clipped for a soundbite. This is not a world that you want to find yourself in. It's not ideal. The chances of it working are extremely slim. But the realistic names, depending where teams end up picking, you could be looking at a Will Levis, right? Like, really. Yeah. So it's, like, this is how
Carson Wentz?
No. I mean, because, like, say the Titans really kind of crap out here. Say they pick 5th. They take Cam Ward. And they're like, yeah, you know what? Like, we're in on Cam. Cam's our guy. And we want to give Will a shot to play somewhere. We use the 2nd round pick on Will Levis. We'll take a conditional 5th back for him that could become a 4th if he plays or hits these kind of metrics. I mean, that's a guy that would fall into that bracket. The problem is teams don't want to trade quarterbacks, right? Like, because you think of guys like Tyson Bagent has looked fine at times as a fine for the Bills. They like him as Caleb's backup. And once again, this is like, I want to make this very clear. This is not an exciting market.
It's an exciting conversation.
Yeah, this is right. This is that's why people will laugh, and I will be one of them. And it wouldn't work here because he has to get out of New York. But like, there will be people that seriously sit here and tell you that, like, do you give Daniel Jones a look? And the answer is no, you don't, because it wouldn't work out. But he's another guy that falls into that exact bracket. I'm trying to go down the list here all the way. I mean, you run real quick. You know who?
Jared Stidham. I'm just going to throw desperation.
No, Stidham he falls into that bracket. You know who really does? And it's a shame that, well, let's see where he's at now. My last one would be Sam Howell.
Ooh. Talked about him a lot last offseason.
Howell will be on an expiring contract. So Seattle might sit there and go, you know what? We decided to ride this out with Geno. Geno, they can kind of pay as you go next year. He'll be on an expiring as well. But say they're not going to cut Geno. So they keep Geno. They're like, let's get a pick for Howell now. And maybe Seattle does the old, we're going to take a Quinn Ewers or whoever on day 2 of next year's draft to play behind Geno, and we're going to get something for Howell before he leaves in free agency. So Sam Howell falls in that bracket. Like, this is not a fun market to play in. That's just call it what it is.
Some scary names here.
Yeah, right. Like, that's literally, though, what you're looking at. I think if the Jets really went that way, where we know Tyrod's on the roster because of the contract, and he should be. Like, there's no reason to just get rid of Tyrod. I mean, yeah, like, and you're not going to draft one, and Jordan Travis is on the roster. Yeah, you'd probably want like a Will Levis, Sam Howell, see where it goes, see what happens. We know Tyrod can win you some games. We don't know if Will Levis can win you some games. We do know Sam Howell could probably win you a couple games. It feels very like the McCown year in terms of under quarterback, and we're going to try to get the rest of this roster right, and then we're all in on the next draft or whatever it may be. It's not exciting, but it's like you have to have these conversations because there aren't endless options at the position in this sport right now.
All right, so a
That
lot of
doesn't mean
questions
though Rodgers
about
should be back, by the way.
yeah, a lot of questions then about Rodgers effectively being like, I just heard everything you guys said. Why is keeping Rodgers a worse option than that? And I think here's kind of how I think about it.
He's toxic
I think
to a new regime.
I think that's the best way to like tightly summarize it. I think from an on-field perspective, it's a very logical thing to say. Like on field, he has the chance to be the best of these options. I say a chance because he's going to be a year older, and like old dudes get hurt, and it's not common to play quarterback at 42 and be good. Like he's hurt right now. That's part of why he's not playing well. And I know what the numbers say, but if you watch the Jets this year, you know how he's really playing and how he's limiting their offense. I think the problem is you're going to have a new GM, a new head coach, a new offensive coordinator, a new quarterbacks coach. Your young starting left tackle in Olu Fashanu. You're going to have Garrett. Like you're going to have some new pieces. If Rodgers is on the team, he's the center of the universe. It's Aaron Rodgers' team. It has to be that way because he's Aaron Rodgers, one of the most famous football players in the world. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's hanging on for one final ride. There is no transition in the locker room. He's the leader of the team, and all the good and all the bad that brings. There is no other young leaders emerging. There's still probably a version of factions in the locker room. This is me guessing, but someone who's played sports and anyone who's played sports know that this happens. You're sticking with the Lazard and Devontae for better or worse. And I can make a case with or without Rodgers. They should keep Devontae because he's still a pretty good player. And like, why not?
Right.
But you're clinging to a part of an old regime, and it would take a very certain type of coach and certain type of front office and certain type of offensive coordinator to make that work next year. And you have to be prepared that he will get hurt and miss meaningful time. Now, I have no idea what the truth of the matter is on his injury. He is clearly hurt. He's clearly been very banged up since the Vikings game, if not before then. I don't know whether he's taking scans, chose not to take scans, whatever. He's playing, right? He's practiced, he's playing. My guess is he won't play all remaining 6 games, but I could be wrong. You know, I'm not saying the dude's, you can say whatever you want. He's a tough son of a bitch. Like there's no doubt about that.
Yep.
It feels like there's so many more ways it could go wrong than right next year, and like really wrong to the point that it almost like totally soils the first year for this new head coach and GM. And on the other side, to argue with myself, like, yeah, maybe they go 9-7 or 9-8 with Rodgers, even if he only plays like 12 games and Tyrod fills in the rest and they're like good enough. And it's not an